New York City buzzed with life on a chilly Friday night. The streets of Manhattan glowed under neon lights, and the air carried the hum of taxis and laughter from crowded bars. Inside one of those bars, a sleek spot called the Velvet Room, Isabel Bennett sat alone at the counter. She swirled a glass of whiskey in her hand, her dark hair falling over her shoulders. At 28, Isabel was no stranger to pressure. As the sole heir to Bennett Enterprises, a family empire built on real estate and luxury goods, she carried the weight of her late mother's legacy, but tonight that weight felt heavier than ever. Her grandfather, George Bennett, had given her an ultimatum: marry soon or risk losing control of the company to distant cousins who cared more about profit than heritage. Isabel took a sip, the burn of the liquor matching the fire in her chest. She hated ultimatums. She hated men who thought they could control her even more. 5 years with Trevor Miles had taught her that lesson the hard way. He had charmed her, promised her forever, then betrayed her for her family's money. Now, she trusted no one. Across the room, Jasper Donovan watched her quietly. To everyone else, he was just another guy in a worn jacket, nursing a beer at a corner table. No one would guess he was the billionaire CEO of Donovan Corporation, a powerhouse in New York's business world. Jasper had his own problems. Rivals within his company were plotting to oust him, and his advisors had urged him to lay low, disguise himself as an ordinary man until the storm passed. So here he was, blending into the crowd, his sharp green eyes hidden behind a pair of cheap glasses. But when he saw Isabel, something shifted. She wasn't just beautiful. There was a spark in her, a mix of defiance and sadness that pulled him in. He couldn't look away. Isabel caught his stare and frowned. She was used to men gawking, but this one didn't leer. He just watched, steady and calm. It annoyed her. She downed her drink, the room spinning slightly, and decided to do something reckless. She stood, walked over to his table, and stopped in front of him. The bar's noise faded as she locked eyes with him. "What's your deal?" she asked, her voice sharp. Jasper blinked, caught off guard. "Just sitting here," he said simply, his tone soft but steady. She smirked, the whiskey fueling her boldness. "You look like you've got something to prove. Do you?" He tilted his head, curious. "Maybe. Depends on what you're asking." Isabel laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Men always think they're worth something. Prove it then." Before he could respond, she shrugged off her coat, letting it fall to the floor. Underneath, she wore a thin silk blouse, the fabric clinging to her frame in the dim light. A few heads turned, but she didn't care. She wanted to see what the stranger would do. Would he flinch, stare, run? Jasper didn't move. His gaze stayed on her face, not her body, and a faint smile tugged at his lips. "You're trouble," he said almost to himself. She raised an eyebrow. "And you're not? If you're a real man, show me." Her words were a challenge, a dare born from too much liquor and too little trust. Jasper stood slowly, his height surprising her. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. "What's your name?" he asked. "Isabel," she said, her chin lifting. "And yours?" "Jasper," he replied, no hesitation. She smirked again. "Jasper? Sounds like a guy who's got nothing to lose. How about this? Marry me tonight, right now. Prove you're not just another coward." It was a wild, absurd idea, something to shake off the chains of her life for a moment. She expected him to laugh or back away. Instead, he looked at her, really looked, and said, "Okay." The next hour blurred into chaos. They stumbled out of the bar, her coat forgotten, and found a tiny chapel a few blocks away. New York had places like that, relics of impulsive nights and fleeting promises. A sleepy clerk handed them a form, and Jasper signed it with a steady hand. Isabel scrawled her name, giggling at the madness of it all. The officiant, an older man with tired eyes, muttered a quick ceremony. "Do you take this woman?" "I do," Jasper said, his voice low. "Do you take this man?" "Sure, why not?" Isabel slurred, grinning. Rings were exchanged, cheap bands from a vending machine nearby. Then it was done. They were married. When the fog of alcohol lifted, Isabel woke up in a small apartment in Queens. Sunlight streamed through a cracked window, and the smell of coffee filled the air. She sat up on a lumpy couch, her head pounding, and saw Jasper in the kitchen. He wore the same jacket from last night, flipping a pancake with a goofy smile. "Morning, wife," he said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Isabel froze. Her eyes darted to her hand where a flimsy ring glinted. She grabbed her purse, found the marriage certificate, and stared at it. Isabel Bennett and Jasper Donovan, legally wed. Her stomach dropped. "What the hell did we do?" she whispered, looking at him. He turned, still smiling. "Got married. Want breakfast?" She stood, clutching the paper. "This is insane. You're insane. Who are you?" Jasper shrugged, plating the pancake. "Just a guy. Live here, work odd jobs, nothing special." His casual tone only made her angrier. She stepped closer, studying him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a quiet confidence that didn't match his story. "Odd jobs? In Queens? And you just marry a stranger?" He met her gaze, unflinching. "You asked me to. I don't back down from a challenge." Isabel opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't argue with that. Last night she'd thrown the dare at him and he'd caught it. But now what? She was married to a man she didn't know, a man who seemed too calm, too steady for the mess she'd dragged him into. Her phone buzzed. A text from George. "Come home. We need to talk about the company." Isabel groaned. She looked at Jasper, flipping another pancake like nothing had happened. "This isn't over," she said, grabbing her bag. "We're fixing this." He nodded, unfazed. "Sure, but eat first. You look like you need it." She glared, but her stomach growled, betraying her. She sat, took the plate, and ate in silence. The pancake was warm, fluffy, better than it had any right to be, and as she watched him hum to himself, she couldn't shake the feeling that Jasper Donovan was more than he let on. For the first time in years, Isabel felt a flicker of something dangerous. Curiosity, maybe even hope. Isabel Bennett stepped out of Jasper Donovan's cramped Queens apartment, the marriage certificate crumpled in her purse. The morning air was crisp, and the streets buzzed with early commuters. She hailed a cab, her mind racing. She had married a stranger, a man who lived in a rundown building, cooked pancakes like a pro, and acted as if tying the knot with her was no big deal. It didn't add up. She glanced back at the faded brick facade, half expecting him to chase after her. He didn't. The cab pulled away, and Isabel leaned back, rubbing her temples. She needed to undo this mess, but first, she had to face her grandfather. Back at the Bennett family penthouse in Manhattan, George Bennett sat in his leather armchair, a newspaper spread across his lap. At 75, he was still sharp, his gray eyes piercing through anyone who dared defy him. Isabel walked in, bracing herself. "You're late," George said, not looking up. "Had a long night?" she replied, dropping her bag on the couch. He folded the paper, peering at her over his glasses. "You look like hell. What's going on?" Isabel hesitated. She could lie, say she'd been working late, but George had a way of sniffing out the truth. "I got married," she blurted. His eyebrows shot up. "Married to who?" She swallowed. "Some guy. Jasper Donovan? It was a stupid mistake." George leaned forward, intrigued. "Donovan? Never heard of him. What does he do?" Isabel shrugged. "Odd jobs, he says. Lives in Queens. I don't know much else." George frowned, then chuckled. "Queens? You married a nobody? Well, at least he's not one of those Wall Street sharks circling you for the company. Bring him here. I want to meet him." "It's getting annulled." George waved a hand. "Nonsense. You're married now. Make it work. The board's watching, Isabel. A husband might steady things." She stared at him, incredulous. This was her life, not a business deal. But arguing with George was like arguing with a brick wall. She stormed out, vowing to fix this herself. Meanwhile, Jasper stood in his tiny kitchen, washing the breakfast dishes. He smiled to himself, thinking of Isabel's fiery exit. She was a whirlwind, all sharp edges and hidden softness. He hadn't planned to marry her, but when she'd thrown that challenge at him, something clicked. He'd been hiding for weeks, dodging the power plays at Donovan Corporation, and she was the first real thing he'd stumbled into. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant, Michael Reed, a no-nonsense guy who'd been with him for years. "Boss, you're still in Queens?" Michael asked. "Yeah," Jasper said, drying his hands. "And I got married last night." Silence. Then, "You what? To who?" "Isabel Bennett," Jasper said casually. Michael groaned. "Bennett Enterprises? Are you insane? She's a target. If your rivals find out, they'll use her against you." Jasper grinned. "Let them try. She's tougher than she looks." Back in Manhattan, Isabel couldn't shake Jasper from her mind. She spent the day at Bennett Enterprises buried in meetings, but her thoughts kept drifting. Who was he really? A guy doing odd jobs? Didn't just marry a stranger without blinking? That night she returned to Queens, determined to get answers. She knocked on his door, and he opened it, wearing an apron smeared with flour. "Hey, wife," he said, grinning. "Hungry?" She stepped inside, ignoring the flutter in her chest. "We need to talk," she said, crossing her arms. He nodded, pulling a tray of cookies from the oven. "Sure, want one?" The smell was heavenly, and her resolve wavered. She took a cookie, biting into it. Warm, soft, perfect. "How do you do this?" she asked, annoyed at how good it was. "Practice," he said, leaning against the counter. "Grew up cooking with my mom." Isabel studied him. His apartment was sparse. A couch, a small TV, a stack of books. But there was something off. The books were on finance and strategy, not the kind of thing an odd job guy would read. "You're not adding up," she said. "You live like this, but you cook like a chef, and you don't freak out about marrying me. What's your story?" Jasper shrugged. "No story. Just me?" She narrowed her eyes. "I don't buy it, but fine. My grandfather wants to meet you tomorrow. Don't embarrass me." He nodded. "Wouldn't dream of it." She turned to leave, but he called after her. "Isabel!" She paused. "You look pretty when you're mad," he said, his voice soft. She rolled her eyes, but her cheeks warmed. "Save it," she muttered, walking out. The next day, Jasper showed up at the penthouse in a clean shirt and jeans, still playing the simple guy. George sized him up, gruff but curious. "So, you're the husband," he said. "What do you do?" "Bit of this, bit of that," Jasper replied, hands in his pockets. "Keep things running." George grunted. "Honest work, good. Isabel needs someone steady." "Don't mess this up," Jasper smiled. "I won't." Isabel watched, torn between irritation and amusement. He was good at this, whatever this was. After George left the room, she cornered him. "You're too calm," she said. "Most guys would run from my family." He looked at her, green eyes steady. "I'm not most guys." That night, everything shifted. Isabel was working late at the office when Jasper showed up, soaked from the rain. He carried an umbrella and a bag of takeout. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, setting it on her desk. She stared, caught off guard. "Why are you here?" she asked. "You didn't eat," he said simply. "Can't have my wife starving." She wanted to snap at him, tell him she didn't need this. But the gesture hit her hard. No one had ever just shown up for her like that. She took the food and they ate in silence, rain tapping the windows. For a moment, she let herself feel safe. But the peace didn't last. The next morning, a package arrived at her office. Inside was a silver necklace from Tiffany's, delicate and stunning, with a note. "For my wife, Jasper." Isabel's jaw dropped. It was worth thousands, far beyond what an odd-job guy could afford. She stormed back to Queens, banging on his door. He opened it, mid-bite into a sandwich. "You like it?" he asked, grinning. "How did you pay for this?" she demanded. He shrugged. "Saved up. Took a while." She didn't believe him. "You're lying," she said. "No one saves that much doing odd jobs." He set the sandwich down, stepping closer. "Maybe I'm good at saving," he said, his voice low. She glared, but her pulse quickened. He was too close, too real. Before she could push further, her phone rang. It was her assistant, Claire. "Isabel, Trevor Miles is back in town. He's asking about you." Isabel's stomach twisted. Trevor, the man who'd broken her heart, was sniffing around again. She hung up, looking at Jasper. "Trouble?" he asked, his tone gentle. "Nothing you need to worry about," she said, but her voice shook. He nodded, not pressing. "I'm here if you need me," he said. She left, rattled. Trevor's return meant danger, and Jasper's secrets were piling up. She couldn't trust either of them, but Jasper's quiet presence lingered in her mind. Days later, she caught him fixing a leaky faucet in his apartment. Sleeves rolled up, hands steady. He looked up, grinning. "Want to help?" She didn't, but she sat anyway, watching. He hummed a tune, fumbling with a wrench like he'd never held one before. It was almost funny until he fixed it perfectly. "You're full of surprises," she said. "Good ones, I hope," he replied, wiping his hands. She didn't answer, but something softened in her. He was a puzzle, one she couldn't solve yet. Then came the real shock. She found a receipt in his jacket pocket, slipped out when he tossed it on the couch. It was for the necklace, paid in cash, no name attached, but the amount was staggering. Isabel's breath caught. Who was Jasper Donovan? She confronted him that night, holding the receipt. "Explain this," she said. He looked at it, then at her. "I told you, saved up." She shook her head. "Stop lying. No one in Queens has that kind of cash." He stepped closer, his smile fading. "Maybe I'm not what you think," he said softly, "but I'm still your husband." Isabel's heart pounded. She wanted to push him away, but his words held her there. She left without another word, the mystery of Jasper Donovan burning in her chest. Isabel Bennett sat in her office at Bennett Enterprises, staring at the Tiffany's necklace Jasper Donovan had given her. It rested on her desk, a shimmering question mark. She couldn't figure him out. He lived in a shabby Queens apartment, claimed to scrape by on odd jobs, yet dropped thousands on a gift like this. And the way he looked at her, steady and warm, chipped away at the walls she'd built since Trevor Miles shattered her trust 5 years ago. She pushed the necklace aside, focusing on the stack of contracts in front of her. Work was her anchor. She wouldn't let some mystery husband pull her under. Her phone buzzed, breaking her focus. It was George Bennett, her grandfather. "Dinner tonight," he said gruffly. "Bring that husband of yours. No excuses." Isabel sighed. "Grandpa, I told you, it's temporary." George snorted. "Temporary or not, he's family now. 7 o'clock. Don't be late." He hung up before she could argue. Isabel rubbed her forehead. George had latched onto Jasper like he was the answer to all her problems. She didn't know how to tell him she planned to annul this marriage as soon as she could, or that she wasn't even sure who Jasper really was. That evening, Jasper arrived at the Bennett penthouse with a paper bag in hand. Isabel met him at the door, her arms crossed. "What's that?" she asked, nodding at the bag. He grinned, pulling out a homemade pie. "Dessert. Figured it'd help." She rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide a flicker of amusement. "You're too good at this," she muttered, leading him inside. George was waiting in the dining room, his presence filling the space. He eyed Jasper up and down, then grunted. "You clean up nice," he said. Jasper, in a simple button-up shirt, nodded. "Thanks, sir." George waved a hand. "Call me George. Sit." Dinner was tense. George grilled Jasper about his life, and Jasper answered with vague charm. "Grew up in a small town," he said, cutting into his steak. "Moved here, found work where I could." Isabel watched, waiting for him to slip. He didn't. George seemed pleased. "Honest man," he said, nodding at Isabel. "You could have done worse." She forced a smile. "Sure." After dessert, George pulled her aside. "I like him," he said. "Keeps you grounded." "Don't mess this up," Isabel bristled. "It's not real, Grandpa. It was a drunken mistake." George's eyes hardened. "Real or not, the board's restless. A husband shows stability. Keep him around, at least until things settle." She wanted to scream, but she nodded. George didn't budge once he'd made up his mind. Later, as they left the penthouse, Jasper walked her to her car. "He's tough," he said, hands in his pockets. "But he cares about you." Isabel stopped, turning to him. Don't act like you know us. This isn't your world. Jasper's smile faded. Maybe not, but I'm here. She looked away, unsettled by his sincerity. He was too easy to like, and that scared her. She drove off, leaving him standing in the glow of the streetlights. The next morning, Isabel felt off. Her stomach churned and a wave of nausea hit her in the office bathroom. She gripped the sink, staring at her reflection. It couldn't be. She hadn't been with anyone since Trevor, months before that night at the bar with Jasper. Panic crept in. She slipped out, bought a pregnancy test from a corner pharmacy, and locked herself in her office. 2 pink lines stared back at her. Pregnant. Her mind spun. It had to be Trevor's. The timing didn't match Jasper, not yet. She sank into her chair, hands trembling. She couldn't tell anyone. Not George. Not Jasper. This was her burden, and she'd carry it alone. That night, trouble found her. She attended a charity gala in the Hamptons, a glittering event packed with New York's elite. Jasper insisted on coming, showing up in a borrowed suit that somehow fit him perfectly. Isabel avoided him, mingling with clients, until a familiar voice cut through the crowd. "Isabel Bennett," Trevor Miles said, stepping into her path. He looked the same, slick and handsome, but his eyes were cold. "Miss me?" She stiffened. "Get lost, Trevor." He smirked. "Heard you got hitched, some nobody from Queens. Slumming it, huh?" Before she could snap back, Jasper appeared at her side. "Problem?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. Trevor laughed. "Who's this, your guard dog?" Jasper didn't flinch. "Her husband." The air thickened. Trevor leaned in, voice low. "She'll dump you soon enough. She always does." Isabel's fists clenched, but Jasper stepped forward, blocking Trevor. "Walk away," he said, quiet but sharp. Trevor sneered, then sauntered off. Isabel turned to Jasper, furious. "I don't need you fighting my battles." He shrugged. "Didn't fight, just stood there." She glared, but her anger faltered. He hadn't backed down, hadn't made a scene, just stood by her. It rattled her more than she'd admit. The gala took a worse turn. Vanessa Pierce, a socialite with a reputation for getting what she wanted, zeroed in on Jasper. She glided over, her red dress hugging her curves, and flashed a dazzling smile. "You must be Isabel's mystery man," she purred, touching his arm. "I'm Vanessa. We should talk." Isabel watched, her stomach twisting. Not jealousy, she told herself. Annoyance. Jasper smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." "I'm with my wife." Vanessa laughed, undeterred. "Wives come and go. Call me if you get bored." She slipped him her card and walked away, hips swaying. Isabel snatched the card from his hand and tore it up. "Don't even think about it," she snapped. He raised an eyebrow. "Wasn't going to." She stormed off, hating how much it bothered her. Rumors spread fast. By the next day, whispers reached her ears. Trevor had planted a story. Isabel was cheating on her new husband back with her ex. Colleagues shot her sidelong glances, and her assistant, Claire, pulled her aside. "People are talking," Claire said. "It's nonsense, right?" Isabel nodded, but her chest tightened. She couldn't let this touch Bennett Enterprises. She tracked Jasper down at his apartment, finding him tinkering with a broken lamp. "Trevor's spreading lies," she said, pacing. "Says I'm with him again." Jasper set the lamp down, frowning. "You're not, though." She stopped, meeting his gaze. "Of course not. But it's a mess. I can't have this hitting the company." He stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "What do you need?" She hesitated. "Just stay out of it. I'll handle him." Jasper nodded, but his eyes said he wouldn't sit idle. That night, he showed up at her office again, this time with a thermos of soup. "You're stressed," he said, pouring her a cup. "Drink." She took it, the warmth seeping into her hands. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "Yeah, I do," he replied. "You're my wife." The word hung between them, heavy and real. She sipped the soup, her walls cracking just a little. Days later, the pregnancy weighed on her. She went to a clinic, confirming it, 6 weeks. Too early for Jasper, too late to ignore. It was Trevor's, a remnant of her past she couldn't escape. She sat in her car, tears stinging her eyes. She couldn't keep it, not with everything falling apart. But the thought of ending it hurt more than she expected. She drove to Jasper's, needing something, anything, to ground her. He opened the door, concern flashing across his face. "You okay?" he asked. She shook her head, stepping inside. "No, but don't ask." He didn't. Instead, he handed her a blanket and sat with her on the couch, silent. His presence was steady, a lifeline she didn't deserve. The breaking point came at a board meeting. George called her in, his face grim. "Rumors are out of control," he said. "Fix it, Isabel, or I'll fix it for you." She nodded, exhausted. That night she told Jasper everything, except the pregnancy. "Trevor's ruining me," she said. "And I don't trust you either. You're hiding something." He looked at her, pained. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "But you don't trust anyone, do you?" She stood, tears threatening. "I can't. Not after Trevor. Not after any of this." She left, slamming the door. She couldn't stay with him. Not with a baby tying her to the past and a husband she couldn't read. But as she walked away, Jasper's quiet strength haunted her. She was running, but from what? Isabel Bennet stood in the grand ballroom of the Hudson Yards Gala, her black dress shimmering under the chandeliers. The event, hosted by Donovan Corporation, was the talk of New York's elite. She'd come alone, leaving Jasper Donovan behind in Queens. Her fight with him still stung, his words echoing in her mind. "I'm not your enemy." She wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with Trevor Miles lurking, not with a baby growing inside her that she couldn't face. She clutched her glass of water, pretending it was wine, and scanned the room. Business tycoons mingled, their laughter a dull roar. She was here to save Bennett Enterprises from the rumors Trevor had spread, not to unravel her tangled heart. The lights dimmed and a hush fell over the crowd. A man stepped onto the stage, tall and commanding in a tailored suit. Isabel froze. It was Jasper. Not the Jasper she knew with his worn jackets and goofy grins, but a polished version, his green eyes sharp and unwavering. Whispers rippled through the room as he took the microphone. "Good evening," he said, his voice steady. "I'm Jasper Donovan, CEO of Donovan Corporation. Thank you for joining us tonight." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Isabel's glass slipped, splashing water on her dress. CEO? Her husband? Her head spun. He'd lied. All this time he'd been hiding this. Jasper's gaze found her across the room. "There's been speculation about me," he continued. "Who I am, what I want. Let me be clear. This company is my life, and so is my wife." He paused, locking eyes with her. "Isabel Bennet is my wife, and I'll protect her with everything I have." The room gasped. Isabel's legs trembled. He was claiming her publicly in front of New York's power players. She wanted to run, to scream, but she couldn't move. Trevor emerged from the crowd, smirking. "Nice story," he called out. "Too bad she's still mine." The lie hit like a punch, and the crowd buzzed. Jasper's jaw tightened, but he didn't falter. "Step aside, Miles," he said, cold and firm. Trevor laughed and disappeared into the throng. Isabel stormed backstage after the speech, finding Jasper alone, loosening his tie. "What was that?" she demanded. He turned, calm as ever. "The truth." She laughed bitterly. "The truth? You've been lying since the night we met. CEO? You let me think you were nothing." He stepped closer, his voice low. "I didn't want you to see me as a title. I wanted you to see me." She shook her head, tears burning. "I don't know you. And now this, you've made me a target." He reached for her, but she pulled back. "I'm fixing it," he said. "Trust me." She glared. "I can't." The night spiraled further. Trevor cornered her outside the venue, his smile venomous. "You're in deep now," he said. "But I can help. Get me Donovan's bid for Hudson Yards, one file, and I'll bury the rumors." Isabel stared, horrified. You're insane. He leaned in, breath hot on her face. Do it, or I tell the world you're carrying my kid. They'll eat you alive. Her hand flew to her stomach, fear clawing at her. He knew. How? She hadn't told anyone. You're bluffing, she said, voice shaking. He smirked. Try me. He walked away, leaving her reeling. She couldn't give him the bid. It would ruin Jasper, ruin everything. But the rumors, the baby, her company, all hung in the balance. She returned to the gala, mind racing. Jasper found her, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up. You're pale, he said, frowning. What happened? She shook her head. Nothing. He didn't buy it, but he didn't push. Stay close, he said. Something's off. She nodded, too shaken to argue. Hours later, as the event wound down, she slipped away to clear her head. The parking garage was quiet, shadows stretching across the concrete. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, and 3 men emerged, faces hard. Bennett, one growled. Miles says hello. Her heart stopped. She backed away, fumbling for her phone. Stay back, she warned, dialing Jasper. Help, she whispered when he answered. Garage, now. The men lunged. Isabel swung her purse, hitting one, but another grabbed her arm, twisting it. Pain shot through her, and she screamed. Then Jasper was there, a blur of motion. He tackled the biggest guy, fists flying. Get off her, he yelled, slamming the man into a car. The second thug swung at him, and Jasper ducked, landing a solid punch. Blood streaked his knuckles, but he didn't stop. The third man bolted, and Jasper turned to the one holding Isabel. Let her go, he said, voice deadly. The guy hesitated, then shoved her aside and ran. Isabel stumbled, catching herself against a pillar. Jasper rushed to her, breathing hard. You okay? He asked, hands on her shoulders. She nodded, trembling. You're hurt, she said, seeing the gash on his forehead. He ignored it, pulling her close. I've got you, he said, his voice breaking. Security arrived, too late, and the attackers were gone. Jasper slumped against a car, blood dripping down his face. Isabel knelt beside him, panic rising. Stay with me, she said, pressing her scarf to his wound. He smiled weakly. Not going anywhere. Then his eyes fluttered shut, and he collapsed. She screamed his name, shaking him. An ambulance screeched into the garage, and paramedics swarmed. They loaded him onto a stretcher, and Isabel followed, her dress stained with his blood. At the hospital, she paced the waiting room, guilt gnawing at her. He'd risked everything for her, and she'd pushed him away. The doctor emerged hours later. Moderate concussion, he said. He took a hard hit, should wake up soon. Isabel nodded, sinking into a chair by Jasper's bed. He looked peaceful, too peaceful, his face bruised, but soft. She took his hand, her throat tight. I thought you were a liar, she whispered. But you're the only one who's been here. Tears fell, and she didn't stop them. She'd run from him, from trust. But he'd chased her down, bled for her. Her free hand rested on her stomach. The baby. She'd thought it was Trevor's, a chain to her past, but doubt crept in. 6 weeks, the clinic said. That night in the bar, the wild, blurry hours after the chapel. Could it be Jasper's? A nurse interrupted, handing her a chart. We ran some tests, she said. You're pregnant, Miss Bennett. About 8 weeks. Isabel's breath caught. 8 weeks, not 6. That meant Jasper, not Trevor. Relief crashed over her, followed by fear. She looked at him, still unconscious. You idiot, she murmured, squeezing his hand. Why didn't you tell me who you were? She'd been so blind, so caught in her own pain. He'd hidden his title, his power, but not his heart. She saw it now, the pancakes, the soup, the way he stood by her. It was all for her. Jasper stirred, groaning. His eyes opened, finding hers. Isabel, he rasped, smiling faintly. She leaned closer, tears spilling. You scared me, she said. Don't do that again. He chuckled, wincing. No promises. She brushed his hair back, her voice soft. You're a billionaire, a CEO, and you let me yell at you in Queens? He shrugged, weak but warm. Worth it. She laughed through her tears, a sound of surrender. I'm keeping you, she said. But no more secrets. His hand tightened on hers. Deal. The door opened and Trevor strode in, smug as ever. Touching, he said, clapping slowly. But it's too late. I've got the bid. You're done, Donovan. Isabel stood, fury blazing. Get out, she snapped. Trevor smirked. Enjoy your little victory. It won't last. He laughed and Jasper squeezed her hand again. Let him have it, he said. I've got what matters. Isabel looked at him, her heart full. He'd given up a fortune, a fight, for her. She sat back down, resting her head on his shoulder. We're a mess, she said. He laughed softly. Yeah, but we're ours. Outside, the city hummed, unaware of the storm they'd weathered. Isabel stayed by his side, the truth settling around them. He wasn't a fool. He was her husband, and she wasn't letting go. Isabel Bennett sat by Jasper Donovan's hospital bed, the beeping of machines a steady rhythm in the quiet room. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting soft lines across his bruised face. He was awake now, his green eyes tired but warm as he looked at her. She hadn't left his side since he'd opened his eyes, her hand still wrapped around his. The chaos of the night before, the gala, the attack, Trevor's threats, all felt distant. What mattered was here, in this moment. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, her touch gentle. You look terrible, she said, her voice teasing but thick with emotion. He chuckled, wincing slightly. Thanks. You look beautiful. She smiled, a real smile, the kind she hadn't felt in years. I'm sorry, he said, his tone serious, for hiding who I was. I thought it'd keep you safe. My world's messy, Isabel. Rivals, power plays. I didn't want you caught in it. She nodded, understanding dawning. You're a billionaire CEO who cooks pancakes in Queens. I should have known you were crazy. He grinned. Crazy about you. Her chest tightened. She'd spent so long running from trust, from love. But he'd chased her down, bled for her. No more secrets, she said firmly. Promise me. He squeezed her hand. Promise. The door creaked open, and George Bennett shuffled in, leaning on his cane. His gray eyes softened at the sight of them. Heard you took a beating, son, he said to Jasper. Good thing you're tough. Jasper sat up slightly. Had to be, sir. Couldn't let her down. George grunted, pleased. Call me George. And you, he turned to Isabel, stop fighting this. He's a keeper. She rolled her eyes, but her heart warmed. I know, she said quietly. George patted Jasper's shoulder. Rest up. I want great-grandkids someday. He left, leaving them in a comfortable silence. Isabel stood, pacing to the window. Trevor's got the Hudson Yards bid, she said, staring out at the city skyline. He thinks he's won. Jasper watched her, unfazed. Let him have it. It's just money. She turned, incredulous. Just money? It's your company. He shrugged. I've got enough. Besides, I'm starting something new, a foundation under your name, for kids, families, whatever you want. Hudson Yards will fund it. Her breath caught. He was giving up a fortune, not out of defeat, but for her. You're insane, she said, but her voice cracked with awe. He smiled. Worth it if it makes you happy. She crossed the room, sitting beside him again. I'm pregnant, she said, the words spilling out. 8 weeks. It's yours. His eyes widened, then softened. Mine? She nodded, tears brimming. I thought it was Trevor's at first. I was scared, but it's you. It's us. Jasper pulled her close, ignoring the pain in his ribs. We're having a kid, he said, burying his face in his shoulder. He laughed, burying her face in his shoulder. Yeah, we are. He kissed her forehead, his lips lingering. Guess we're stuck together now. She pulled back, smirking. Don't get cocky. I could still divorce you. He laughed, the sound filling the room. Try it. I'll win you back. Days later, Jasper was discharged. Isabel brought him to her Manhattan apartment, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows. He stood in the kitchen, still bandaged, stirring a pot of soup. You're supposed to rest, she said, leaning against the counter. I am, he replied, grinning. Cooking's relaxing. She shook her head, stepping closer. You're ridiculous. He turned off the stove, facing her. And you're stuck with me. She reached up, touching his cheek. Good. They kissed, slow and sure, the city humming outside. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. That weekend they walked through Central Park, the leaves golden in the late afternoon sun. Jasper held her hand, his grip firm. What's next? He asked. She glanced at him, the man who'd gone from a stranger to her everything. We figure it out, she said. You, me, the baby. No more running. He nodded, pulling her closer. No more hiding. They stopped by the lake, the water reflecting the fading light. Isabel rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the weight of her past lift. Trevor was gone, banished from New York by Jasper's quiet power. Vanessa Pierce had faded into the gossip pages, her schemes forgotten. George was already planning a nursery. Back home, they cooked together, a simple meal of pasta and laughter. Isabel caught Jasper sneaking a taste and she swatted his hand. Patience, she said, grinning. He pulled her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen. Can't wait, he said. Not for dinner, not for us. She laughed, the sound free and light. They ate on the couch, plates balanced on their knees, talking about names, dreams, the future. It was messy, imperfect, but real. As night fell, they stood on the balcony, the city sprawling below. Jasper wrapped an arm around her, his warmth steady against the cool air. Love's not about knowing everything, he said, his voice soft. It's about trusting through the unknown. Isabel looked up at him, her heart full. You're right, she said, and I trust you. He smiled, kissing her under the stars. They'd started as strangers, stumbled through lies and chaos, but they'd found each other, and that was enough.